Our goals for this course vary over talking about fundamentals that establish a way that we can understand what to expect in our systems, as well as components, how we would go about measuring pressure, looking at gauges and system components in order to understand how to make the environment that we need to for all of the different applications. We talk about safety and hazards, and I'm not going to go through all of these. These are in the notes, and you can ask me any questions afterwards, of course, that you'd like to. But essentially, we're establishing this base in the rough vacuum regime that later courses we can go into high vacuum and look at other applications for that as well. So how do we do this? We've got a 14 meeting schedule, essentially, where we've got both online content as well as synchronous meetings. And so what we do with both of these parts is the online content is essentially our one-to-many, you know, so essentially lectures and resources and things that people can go back to again to process again as we go through the course, because, you know, as we all know, when we understand things a little bit better, when we go back and look at other things, we see them a little differently. So they can go and look at this content as many times as they like. And then also the nice thing is, of course, that students can access this in whatever schedule that they have got. The other part of the class are synchronous meetings that are hosted out of this room, out of this lab, and I'm going to actually zoom out a little bit. You can see a little bit more about what's going on in this room. We have places for students to meet with us in person, use equipment that we've got here, but we also have the ability to ship out equipment to remote sites so that they have the hands-on experience, and that's a big portion of our course as well, is that student-to-student interactive time that we're able to, with systems that are out at other locations across the country or across the world, we can gather data in the environments that they are in, and of course then they get hands-on experience working with the systems as well. And of course then we can work through content where there's immediate feedback and discussions and that real-time interaction. And of course, we can do experiments, investigations, small projects, all these kinds of things while we're together. So we leave the portions that, you know, again, are sort of me talking to them or a resource talking to them for offline time, and then work with all of what we're trying to do together. So the resources that students have in order to navigate all of the things that we're talking about, all of the different activities that we've got, the primary source is a study guide, and that study guide really has 3 parts. So it's got, so that online portion where we've got video lectures, there are notes that are guided, and I'll show you an example of that in a second, so that students focus in on the particular things that we're trying to get from that lecture that we're going to go and apply to activities later. And those activities, the guided learning activities, are in person, and again, those are all of the information about how they're going to go and what data the students are trying to gather are all laid out in the study guide, as well as the homework portion of the study guide. And so, again, we've got video lectures, readings, quizzes, and discussions, and these discussions are between students, so a student will post and other students will discuss topics that are both relevant to the particular material that we're working on, as well as students sharing their experiences. And of course, yes, that we have students that are at all different levels, all different amounts of experience that are taking this course. They get to have mentorship and learn from each other through these discussions as well. And again, all those things are done online, asynchronously, but the learning activities, again, concepts, calculations, any kind of hands-on things that we do, working with equipment, we do those at our meetings. And then we've got homework where they're able to practice the things that we have been working on afterwards, again, just to really make sure that they're feeling traction with what we're working on. And then we've got assessments other than quizzes, we've got, and homework, we've got 2 midterms and a final, and those are, you know, peppered throughout the semester. So here's an example of what the guided lecture notes look like. Again, there's sometimes kind of fill in the blank where they're looking for maybe definitions that we're introducing or prompts for thinking more in depth about a particular concept. And then on the right-hand side, we've got an idea of what that guided learning activity would look like for an experiment. So, you know, this is the sort of tail end of the procedure, as well as the data table with the date collected, and, you know, trying to practice those best practices for what happens when you take data, how do you report it. You know, we talk about, of course, what are we doing when we're taking a measurement, and how are we going to report it. So all of these things are practiced hands-on, you know, as we're taking data real time. And so those concepts are not just reinforced by seeing it in person, but that they are able to work with it and practice all of those different things that they're going to have to do going forward. So here's just sort of a slide from lecture video. I can, of course, if you're interested, I can share any of these lecture videos with you. But this one is looking at positive displacement, how we can think about this by using a gas law that we introduced earlier, Boyle's law, right? We can see how that would fit into what pump down looks like for a particular system. And it's really, instead of just saying, okay, we use Boyle's law to do this, right? It's working through what are these different values that we're talking about when we're looking at our system, at a real system. Like, what are we going to do here? So another resource that we've got that we use that is a workhorse for our in-person meetings is the rough vacuum equipment trainer, which is essentially, right, it's a rough vacuum. It has all of the components that we would need for a basic vacuum system. And one of the beautiful things about this system is that it's a very open concept. You can see what all the flow paths are, what all the components look like. There's nothing hidden behind any veils. And so, right, we start with, you know, we use this vacuum trainer in lots of different ways to understand what it is that what a vacuum system does in general. And of course, you can see we've got a bunch of different gauges, so we can talk about, you know, what to expect from different gauges, right? We've got many things that we can do with this. It can be shipped to remote sites. So again, we've got a telepresence portion of this. So the students that are here and there, right, we get information from a bunch of different types of systems as well, right? They might have different pumps and different vacuum chamber sizes, and we can see how that changes what it is that they're looking at. And again, it's a real-time demonstration of the concepts that we're establishing. So they don't just, you know, sort of get theory and maybe some calculations, right? We're actually doing this. We're using this to go see how this applies to a system. And so what does this look like when we're actually doing the class? So this is just an example of one of the learning activities. So it's just a reminder of what we're doing, what the procedure looks like. But what we do in order for data to be shared real time and for students to interact with each other through the data, is actually a similar way that we were doing this with the breakout rooms. We use Google Documents, we use a Google Sheet. And I've got a link here that I can stick in the chat, perhaps, but I'm going to just actually show you that a little bit. We've got maybe a little bit of time here. I'm going to pull this over. So if you would click on that link, you'd get, this is what the Google Doc would look like. And so I'm just going to jump over here to the vacuum trainer so you can see what this looks like. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on this. So we've got, of course, cameras from a bunch of different directions, and we've got microphones that are capturing what we're doing in the classroom. All of this is recorded, so students can go back and look at a live session again in order to, if they you know, didn't catch something or they want to go and review what we did. So I'm just zooming in on this rough vacuum trainer here, we've got, again, a few different systems. And right now I've got the piezo gauge so that I can take data. And I'm going to turn on the pump, and it gets a little bit loud when I do that. And I'm going to log back in here. But you'll be able to see, right, I mean, you've now seen, of course, what happens when we can share things real time. But, there we go. So at the moment, right, we've actually got the system pumped down, and so I'm just going to close up the roughing valve, open up the vents, and we can watch on the different gauges on the board-on gauge. We can watch the pressure change quite a bit. But again, right, we go through working with the system under a bunch of different conditions, and so I'm just going to start taking data here, and I can show you what that looks like. I'm going to start logging, and then I'm going to upload that data to the Google Sheets that I'm showing that I've shared.
So
I'm
sorry,
just going to pump down. Yeah.
Ange, I think I sabotaged you. I stopped sharing your screen so we could watch you do your thing with the equipment.
I see. Okay, so no worries anyway. There's not much exciting happening on there quite yet anyway. So okay. I'll share that again in a second.
Okay.
But let me see. I'm starting my load, and I'm going to start my pump down. So again, right, we go through the pump down procedure. Again, lots of different conditions. Sometimes we do it with different backfilling of different gases, and you see how that changes what's going on with our gauges. But right, I'm just pumping down. My board-on gauge here is right, showing me that I'm going to higher and higher vacuum. And I think I'm just going to essentially pump here. We can also see on the piezo we're at about 104 or something like that. And so I'm just going to close up the roughing valve. And then I'm going to show what this data looks like here. Stop my log. All right, so now I'm going to share just so you can see what this looks like. So again, of course, I can have any computer that is looking at this. I'm just going to copy and paste this over. Right, and so then students can right, look at this data, and of course we can, I'm actually going to turn off the pump. Right, they can look at the data, we can share it, everybody can manipulate it, and we can plot pump down curves and see what this really looks like, again, under multiple conditions. So let me go back. I believe, actually, that might be the end of what I thought we probably would have time for, but of course I'm willing to talk about anything else at any point later.